Okay, are we live? I think we might be live. I wish I could figure out how to get this to do it beforehand, but I haven't figured that part out yet. And so what I'd like to do... Oh, hey, I can use that. No, pause that. I'm going to be tweeting this out. Sorry for the rough intro, everybody. Okay, there, I can see myself on the screen. If I go here... Alright, look at that. I've got a live stream, so... Sorry for all the boomer tech. Tweet it there, send it here. And I think we're just about ready to go. Thank you for the patience. So, welcome to the stream. I'm going to be discussing Ken Wilber's book, The Religion of the Future. Spoiler warning, the religion of the future is all the ones we already have. So it's nothing too crazy or frightening. Well, it's pretty crazy, but it's not that frightening, what he's talking about. It's actually quite optimistic and exciting. So let's get back to the tab here. I've decided to do this as a live stream. I was trying to figure out how to make this video, and I think live stream is the optimal way to do it, because that way if I'm not clear about anything, or if there's stuff that you guys need more clarification of, you can ask me in the comments. But I do have a bit of a layout for how I'm going to be doing this. First of all, introducing the entire topic. Second, we're going to hit the structures of consciousness. You guys have all probably heard of psychomath. He's the guy that uses, to quote him, uses Ken Wilber's theory to complain about modern dating with great precision. Which is just a fantastic self-description. This is what he mainly focuses on, is the structures of consciousness. Next, I'll be talking about the quadrants. Finally, the states, and this is where it gets really weird. This is going to be the challenging part for myself, but I think I've got it. And I'm going to finish off by talking about why any of this matters. Okay, like, is this more than just how many angels can dance on the head of a pin? It absolutely is. The consequences of everything that's happening right now are profound. Everything is about to change. And, yeah, but we'll save that until we get there. First, I should start off by introducing myself a little bit. So, I've been interested in developmental psychology from the youngest age. Interested in understanding what the mind is, how the mind works, what rationality is, how we integrate with the universe, how we ought to be living our lives. These are questions that have possessed me for the longest time. Why are you not... It says it's still streaming. Okay. Cut out for a second there. You know, I'm going to switch over. Mitch Crane says he's nervous and excited for the future at the same time. Yeah, that is a good way to put it. Alright, I'm going to click over to the... Rather than the stream window, I'm on the YouTube window now. So... And I'm going to scroll down a bit so my out of sync by 3 second face doesn't distract me. So yes, I've been interested in all of this for a very long time. But I didn't know about Ken Wilber until Psychomath started posting. So huge thanks to him for making me aware of it. I think part of the issue is that Ken Wilber, his theory he calls it integral theory, which to me sounds like calculus. So I might have brushed over it, not realizing what it was. And he also talks about a fourth turning in Buddhism, which is not at all the same thing as the fourth turning in the Strauss-Howe generational cycle theory. He does comment in the book that we really lack the language for a lot of these higher states. Like, we're kind of forced to use metaphors to describe all of them. Because these are new layers of consciousness that we're achieving as a species. To use a metaphor for this, I read a science fiction novel once where it was, I read something that was about cavemen. And in the cavemen society, nobody had names because you didn't need a name. Your name was your job. Your name was mother, brother, grandpa, spear chucker, whatever it might be. You didn't need a name as a caveman because there weren't so many people that you needed names. And we're kind of hitting the same sort of thing with these layers of consciousness. So yeah, this is something I've been very interested in for a long time. Just recently discovered, past couple years, discovered Ken Wilber's work. Been digging deep into him. I'm also a bit of a mystic. I'm highly, highly skeptical of most claims. I take a very cutting, rational approach to anything on the fringes. But that doesn't mean I don't believe in things on the fringes. I'm pretty convinced that astrology is true. There is strong evidence for psychic ability, and I've had enough experiences myself that, yes, psychic ability is a real thing. UFOs I've got no idea about. Flat Earth, I'm 99.9%. I haven't gone out of my way to disprove it personally, but I got a degree in geographic information systems. If they faked all of that, why? And even paranormal experiences I've had, most of them could be sleep deprivation, could be optical illusion. I take note of them, but I'm not sure about most of them. So I tend to have a very cutting intellect with all of this. I don't just believe anything that comes across my table. But I'm also not closed-minded. I don't effing love science. I love ideas. I love exploring consciousness. So, I explain all of that because there may be a lot of new watchers for this video because of the topic. And so, if you don't know me, and if you look up my name, you're going to hear a lot of people very angry about me, because part of being rational for the past 20 years is noticing that society has been leading up to this mass formation, that it's been going nuts, and it's mostly been going nuts on the left. So, yeah, lots of radical lefties that think I'm the second coming of Mustache Man, which, normally I have a goatee, but it just got back from a long work tasking, so you only get the upper half of it right now. No, I'm not. I'm not even particularly conservative. It's just that the left has been Looney Tunes, whereas the right is only 30% Looney Tunes. So that makes me a radical right-winger. Now, that said, let's talk about Ken Wilber for a second. The best metaphor I could give for this book, which I absolutely love because of how analytical it is. The best metaphor I can give for it is, imagine one of those medieval travel logs. Okay, the journeys of Marco Polo. During the medieval era, there was a lot of these explorers that would write in their journals about finding the country of the dog-headed people. And there were frequent debates. There were theological debates in medieval Europe as to whether or not the dog-headed people could receive baptism. Right? That people believed these dog-headed people actually existed and were worthy of debate. So a lot of these journals, they're true exploration accounts, and yet they're filled with the weirdest stuff at the same time. Dog-headed people, people with their faces on their stomachs, all sorts of wild stuff. Ken Wilber's book is like reading one of these. And Ken Wilber will briefly, casually mention, oh yes, and this is the land of the dog-headed people. Anyway, back to geographical coordinate systems. It's fantastic. Like, there's a few places in the book where he says, and by the way, if you master this skill, you get to choose which body you get to reincarnate to. Anyway, back onto all the psychology. So, yes, we are actually talking about psychic abilities, which are proven by the nature of existence itself. It's not quite as crazy as it all sounds. And yet he stays away from most of that. Like, this is psychology. This is the way the universe works. You know, like the double slit experiment in quantum mechanics, you know, they call it the observer effect. It actually has nothing to do with observation. I know a lot of people say, oh, look, if you observe the particle. Okay, that's not what it is. It's if you collapse the waveform, the particle behaves one way. If you don't, it behaves another way. Has nothing to do with observation. I wish it did. I wish it did. It's a good metaphor, but there's actually no observation there. And yet, it's pointing out something really spooky about the universe. It's not observation, okay? The observer effect doesn't prove psychic ability. It doesn't prove that we have souls. That's not what it is. It's misinterpreted all the time. But it does prove that the universe is really, really spooky. It's the same thing with all of this. If you're still existing in the Newtonian billiard ball version of reality, well, like, that's been thoroughly discredited like a century ago. But don't take my word for it. So let me see some of these comments here. Master Mahan podcast. Oh, hey man, good to have you. Good to have you. Yeah, we're gonna do a podcast soon. Pandora's box. Oh man, I'm not going to get into that. Not touching Pandora's box tonight. There's too much to cover. Tonight's whiskey is I went to the store and it was the 10% off day, so I got 2 frickin' liters of Wisers. That should last me 3 or 4 days. Serena, glad to have you. Anton LeVay, no, I'm his evil twin. You know, the one that's actually a Catholic. Oh, man. We're not going to get into Gate, aside from Gate is real. The CIA has proved that the afterlife exists. The documentation's been released on that. They scientifically proved that there's an afterlife. And then buried it for 20 years because they were trying to spy on the Russians. Welcome to modernity. And Necrodancer comments, psychic shit is annoying, seeing too much you didn't ask for. I had an ex like that. Well, you know, maybe some of this will be useful for that. Anyway, that's the introduction. Ken Wilber, highly advanced mystic and scientist, who absolutely definitely has psychic abilities and visions, but he keeps it out of his books because his books are purely analytical, right? It's like he's imagine Christopher Columbus had a vision from God telling him to go west to the New World. There's a guy that wrote Ender's Game wrote a novel about that concept, by the way. The Redemption of Columbus. Great book. So imagine Christopher Columbus had a vision from God telling him to go west. And he briefly mentions this in his journal, and the rest of it is nothing but science of navigation. That's kind of what Ken Wilber's doing. So, with that said, let's jump on to point number 2. The structures of consciousness. This is the thing that psychomath talks about all the time. This is your thinking about your relations to other people. How you engage with society. Now, I'm going to toss up on screen here. Yeah, that's the one. So this is a very simplified version. Psychomath typically does 9 levels of structures. You can get to 11, you can do 15. You can have as many levels as you want. It's how nuanced do you want to be. It's like asking how many colors are there in the color palette. Or how many notes are in a scale. We use 12, but you can use more than that. Okay, like the math keeps getting more detailed. It's all mathematical relationships when it comes to notes in a musical scale. Same thing with levels of thinking about thinking. You can get more and more nuanced. And by the way, the source for all of this, where did Ken Wilber get this? Did he just make it up? Did he have a vision about it? No, there's been an extensive field of study in psychology. I'm going to quote from, I'm going to paraphrase from Peterson talking about Piaget. Piaget was asking the question, okay, so does the human, like does the baby, the new human, do they boot up sort of like a computer? Right? Like at this stage, this process boots up, and then this process boots up, and on and on. I should be using this hand because I've got half the screen covered. And it turns out that yes, then the brain activates by booting up various structures. Booting up various levels of morality. And the more complex human civilization gets, the more complex our moral reasoning needs to be. Right? Like in caveman days, caveman would be, if we look at this chart here, down at the bottom, the magic. This is where we're thinking at caveman days, where we don't need names for everything. Our role in the tribe is our name. If we see an eagle, it is the eagle god. It's not a representation of the great spirit, the great eagle. It is the great spirit. In the magic mindset, every bend in the creek has its name, but the creek itself, the river itself, doesn't have a name. Doesn't need one. And as we advance through these structures, it's all about transcend and include. The subject becomes the object of the new subject, which sounds really obtuse, but give it a sec, because it perfectly illustrates it. So we've got magic, early mythic, rational, pluralistic, and integral. Those are the stages we're going to use for this video. You'll also notice on the x-axis you have the states of consciousness. That's going to be the part where it gets really weird. But let's start with the stages. Let's try and explain this so everybody understands. Again, this is what Psychomath does with his channel. I'm going to be explaining them slightly differently than him. And maybe his explanation and my explanation combined will, you know, fertilize some fruit trees in your mind. That's the idea here. So at the primitive level, all right, we're going to start with a baby. A baby is its needs. A baby is its emotions. It is hungry, it's cranky, it's tired. It is what it is. What it's feeling is the subject. We could roughly put this at the magic stage for this breakdown. Your subject is what you're feeling. As the baby becomes a toddler, their feelings become the object of the new subject. Right? So the baby wants something, the baby cries. The toddler wants something, they go and find mom or dad. You know, if they want attention, like a metaphor I love to use, you'll sometimes see a kid having a temper tantrum and nobody's paying attention. The kid will stop having a temper tantrum, go and find an adult to pay attention, and then have another temper tantrum, right? Like, you know what you're doing. You know exactly what you're doing. Like, the baby just cries. The toddler cries strategically. So this is the early mythic level, is where we start having emotions strategically. We were aware of the emotions. To a large extent, we labeled these emotions as gods, right? Like, the god descended upon the guy with the ankle from the Battle of Troy. What's his name? This would be so smooth if I could remember. I just got off night shifts. All right, give me some slack here, folks. Achilles, Achille, as the Greeks say. Ares descended upon Achilles. The baby is not aware of his emotions. He just is his emotions. The early mythic is aware of the emotions, but they're still external. They're something else. They take you over. Thus, the previous subject became the object, the new subject. This is also the era when slavery was invented. And slavery was the transition to the next stage, which is mythic. So mythic is the stage where, well, what's the subject of the previous stage? The subject of the previous stage is awareness of emotions. It's power. Okay? It's that I have an emotion. I want to satisfy that emotion. I want power. In fact, the whole conflict of what is that play? What is that play by Homer about Achilles and the Battle of Troy and chat? Necrodancer, thank you. Oh, American Spirit Blue, not bad. I am definitely not smoking smuggled tobacco from an Indian reservation. So the whole, it's not the Odyssey, it's like the sequel. The whole plot of that story is that you have all these people seeking power. You have this big battle happening because of these people seeking power, and Achilles gets completely out of control. And forgiveness is required. Like the story of the Trojan War ends with putting an end to the blood debt through forgiveness. This is getting to stage, the mythic stage. Psychomath would call this stage 4, the stage of traditional religion, the stage of social roles, of very strict social roles. So levels 1 and 2 using psychomaths, these are the baby levels, right? These are just like feeling things, wanting things. Stage 3 is the power level. I want the things I want, and I don't want people telling me I can't do it. Well, if everybody does that, if everybody just blindly seeks out their own power, we have chaos everywhere. This is also this is what starts the conversation in Plato's The Republic. The conversation in that dialogue, it starts off with the question of, is justice a virtue in and of itself, or is justice a necessary evil? Like, what I want to do is be good to my friends and do evil to my enemies. That's what I want to do. But if everybody does that, then soon we've burned down one another's houses, and we've burned all the crops, now we're all going to starve to death. So instead of doing whatever I want all the time, we have to have a justice system, unfortunately, so that we don't murder one another and shit in the streets and etc., etc. Or, and this is the question that starts Socrates asking the whole thing, or is justice actually good? Should justice not just, like, it's not just a necessary, like, we all gotta pay taxes, who's gonna build the roads? You know, go ask that at a libertarian conference. But is justice actually a good in itself? Should we want justice for justice's sake? And the mythic, the orange on this chart here, is where you start celebrating justice for justice's sake. Where you get the 10 Commandments, right? Where the Iliad illustrates that when everybody is just seeking their own power, when Achilles is acting like an N-word, then everything's going to fall apart. And actually we need a higher ordering to society. We need traditional religious values. Like, the traditional religious values were at one point the novel religious values. So the subject becomes, how can we have nice things? How can we have a civilized society? Well, what we need to do is take these power urges, which were the previous subject, the subject of I want to be the guy, I want to have all the things, becomes the object. Okay, I want to have all the things, but if everybody does that, then we're going to have 0 things. So how can I have some things by becoming the guy that plays by the rules? What rules? What are the rules? That is the mythic stage of consciousness, of conscious development. To rewind a bit, if you were a caveman with a tribe of 50 people, you didn't need any rules. Like, you already know what the rules are. Right? Like you go visit your friend. Right? You're thirsty. You're going to say, hey, do you mind if I grab a glass of water? Which is just the weirdest question in the world. Like, the water's free. Of course you can grab a glass of water. Why are you asking me? Well, because you're at your friend's house. And you're not just going to start poking at his stuff. It's his water. It's his glass. So you ask permission. This stuff is built into us. You don't need to think about the rules. You don't need to think about the justice system at the tribal level. This stuff is programmed into us. Even dogs know these rules. But when you start getting to these complex societies, well, how do we all get along so we're not stepping on each other's toes? You're starting to get some really complex internal structures dictating how you treat others. Okay, so we have the traditional religion now. We've got the Ten Commandments. We've got the Temple of Apollo. We've got the structure of society. We're all good little boys and girls. We're all following the rules. I mentioned slavery before. Slavery gets invented at the early Mythic, and it maintains itself as an institution during the Mythic, but it's primarily an institution for people that don't embody the Mythic. Okay? Because Mythic, we're getting everybody to follow the rules, and one of the rules is, if I'm going to hire you, you need to show up 5 days a week at 8 a.m. Because if you don't do that, if you don't keep your promise, my business falls apart. When you go to the early Mythic, when you go to Achilles, trying to be the gorilla dick N-word, right? He's trying to be the guy. Well, your business falls apart when you have that. This is why in all of these societies that are transitioning from early Mythic to Mythic, you find the invention of slavery, even though slavery, it's a bad institution. Having free people, free citizens that show up and make profit, like that's a far better institution than slavery. The problem is, the people working at the early Mythic level, they don't hold to their word. They don't understand the concept of promise. Promise doesn't exist until the Mythic level. That's where you keep the covenant with God. And with your fellow man. So, Mythic level. This is the early city-states are at this Mythic level. Again, the Iliad. The Iliad is a play explaining the Mythic level to the audience. Like, this is why you gotta follow the rules. Otherwise, we're gonna have endless wars that destroy everything. They still had slavery, right? But the slavery was for the underclasses. The upper classes were expected to follow the rules without somebody holding a whip against them. Well, now we get to the next stage. This next stage is the early rational. This is the stage of the empires, of the Romans. Okay, so if the Mythic stage, the subject is the rules. It's the Ten Commandments. It's the covenant with God. The rational stage is, well, what's the best form of the rules? Like, okay, we get that we all have to follow the rules. We need some commandments from God. But which ones should they be? Should it be 10? Should it be 8? So the Romans go around conquering everybody and then integrating them. So previously you conquered people to enslave them and steal their stuff. The Romans conquered people to say, well, we kicked your butts, so you're part of Rome now, you're paying taxes to us, and we like that you have a religion. How about if we turn it into an organized religion? You call him Zeus? Cool, we call him Jupiter. Same thing. You're going to organize along our standards, and we're going to optimize everything, and all the roads are going to go back to Rome. Nyango Star America! Brother, we need to hang out again. It's been too long. Sounds like you've been watching Formscapes. I have not. What is that? Post a link if you can. What number is the Justice Trump in the tarot? Does anybody remember of it? Master Mayhan, we are going to be talking about the tarot in this stream, okay? Alright, but let's finish off with these stages. So the rational is trying to take the rules of religion, but optimize the rules of religion. This starts leading into the Enlightenment, into the scientific project. If you think, right now in the West, we are primarily at the rational and plural, the bulk of the population is mostly at the rational stage. Despite what you're seeing on the streets, go and get your degree, get a degree in something that's high in demand, and you'll make a lot of money, then you can buy a bunch of cars. That's the rational. That's the achievement, right? Like, should I become a plumber, or should I study, should I get a PhD in puppetry, in transgender turtle studies? Well, no, you should get the engineering degree, because then you'll get a lot of money, and you can buy some cars. Rational achievement. The mythic would say you gotta follow the rules. Your daddy, he was a plumber, so you'd better be a plumber too, because that's what your daddy did. The pluralistic is when, okay, so we've done the rational. The rational is, how do I win the game? How do I get the most toys? How do I be the guy? I got the most money. The pluralistic steps back and says, wait a minute. I used to be the subject of, I want to be number one. But number one in what? Scrooge. He was the guy. He was the man. He had all the shekels. But nobody liked him. Maybe he was playing the wrong game. Maybe there's a lot of games that we can play. And, maybe everybody's just playing their own game. And so, who am I to judge? That's the pluralistic stage. So our new subject is, what game do I want to play? Do I want to have a big pile of shekels? Or do I want to pursue polyamory? Like, there's still that implicit, I want to be the best at what I do. Whatever I value in life, I want to have the most of what I value. But the rules, I don't have to value what everybody else values. Maybe I just want a huge collection of Funko Pops instead of ever feeling the touch of a woman. Valid perspective. And then finally, on this chart right here, you get the integral stage. And this is where things start getting really crazy. This is where you start noticing that all of these things come in stages, that they build upon one another. Right? The problem with the pluralistic stage is it's very good at understanding others. Okay? Like, most anthropologists are likely at the pluralistic stage, which allows them to genuinely understand other cultures. Now, if you go to the rational businessman or the mythic religious person, and you try and explain to them that the Ubuntu tribe over in Africa, they do things this way, the rational guy will say, well, that's stupid. They're not saving for their 401k. And the mythic will say, well, clearly they worship demons. while the pluralistic will understand that they've developed this adaptive strategy for existing, but the pluralist won't notice that the Ubuntu tribe is at the early Mythic, and they regularly genocide their neighbors. They'll just ignore that part. Circumcised women. They'll not notice any of that because they've gone past the idea of having the biggest 401k. They now think everything's equal. It's not until you get to integral that you realize that the Ubuntu tribe has very good reasons for doing what they're doing. And it's an interesting study in early civilization. But they're also a bunch of barbarians. And that we want them to advance. Well, either we want to cordon them off as a nature preservation, I don't know. Or if we're going to integrate, we don't want to bring them over here and have them doing the same stuff they're doing over there. Insert joke about eating house pets. These are progressive stages that advance, and we, as individuals, all advance through them. Kohlberg's levels of moral development are all about this concept. Here, I think that's enough of the levels and states for now. You start off good boy, good girl. You follow the rules either because you're going to get punished or because if you follow the rules, maybe you'll get a cookie. Then you start realizing we need rules and regulations, otherwise everything falls apart. And finally you start seeing ascendant moral principles that bring beauty and excellence into existence. That if we could get everybody to this level, or if we could get people to progress, and this is part of the reason this stuff matters. I'm sure you've all had the experience where you're talking to somebody and you're trying to explain to you it's a very basic moral principle. No, you shouldn't tell your boss to go to hell. Even if you hate your boss, you should get over yourself and play nice with people, because then you'll get paychecks and you can buy nice stuff. That's the basic reason all this stuff matters. Negro Dancer said, my dad was a plumber, as am I. Hey, nothing wrong with being a plumber, okay? Very well paid profession. But you shouldn't be forced into it, is more the point. So those are the stages. There's more stages above this. They start getting really wacky. Okay, and you can get more detailed about all the stages. There's intermediate stages. All of these are built off of a meta-analysis of all the different lines of cognitive development. Right? You've got an emotional line, you've got a moral line, you've got but they all, if you put them next to each other, they all fit together. They're not independent. They're just different aspects of the same growth pattern. And about 1% of the population, rewind a bit, the pluralistic stage, the hippie stage, the everybody has a valid view stage, hit about 10% in the 60s. And it's taken over society. It's the default view is that everybody's perspective is valid. Right? We went from corporations in the 50s dictating what everybody should believe because this is the optimal way to make money, to now corporations are dictating that you have to have respect for how everybody behaves. All right? Like, it's... We all see the obnoxious side of that. Absolutely, it's obnoxious. But it's a lot better than this lady acquired khaki bird legs at a nightclub in the 50s. Shame her and learn from her example. You know, we make fun of that. The whole Bethesda Fallout series is all about making fun of that patriarchal stage 5 achievement indoctrination that was common in the 50s. Even though if you go back and watch some of those indoctrination videos, they're actually quite good. They're actually kind of lifting people up. But they're very confident that we've got the best society ever because we've got 401ks. Well, a hippie movement comes along, gets to stage 6. You get to 10% of the population believing something, it takes over the entire population. Stage 6 says everybody should live their best life. Stage 7 is where we figure out that there's stages. Prophet Zombie, that's Prophet Zombie just posted a link here. Hopefully these comments, I can't remember whether or not the comments will appear in the permanent stream. I hope they do. Prophet Zombie God, copy just the last little bit of the URL and toss that in the comments. I think it might have blocked the link. Oh, geez, and it's on top chat. Is it? Live chat. I'm sorry, guys. I wasn't seeing all of your comments. It defaults to the top. I want to see all the comments. Level 7 is where we realize that people are growing through these stages, and that somebody at level 3 should not be entrusted with the full range of social power that somebody at level 5 should be. Top comments is a lie. It is a lie. Yeah, just copy the alphanumeric signature at the end of the video. Like watch equals. Just copy the last bit. Toss that in there. People can find it. All right, so that's a review of the structures. There are higher structures, but that's not the focus of this video, and they don't matter as much. We're at 1% at 7. If we can get 10% of the population at level 7, and to know they're at level 7 as well. And the best part of this too is that, hypothetically, what if Psychomath has developed an AI that you converse with it to find out what stage you're at, what level. I haven't taken the test yet. I've been meaning to, haven't done it yet. What if we were to implement, if you want to vote, for example, you have to achieve this score on the test. Now you might worry that, well, what if people just studied and faked the test? Here's the best part. Here's the really good news. When you study this stuff, you actually advance in levels. You can't cheat on it. Like when you try and cheat, you actually just become a more competent human being. The higher you are up in the levels, it does get lonely. When you're one of the few, when everybody else is at level 3, and they're all trying to show their ass to one another and fight with one another, if you're high level, it's very, very lonely. But at high level, you're going to be a lot more effective in life. You're going to be better at achieving your ends. The more people we get to higher levels, the better society becomes. And if people had to fake being at high level, you can't fake it. You literally become high level when you try and pretend to be high level. High level of thinking about your role in society and how you engage with social structures. So, I'm going to put it back on screen for a sec. This one. So the magic level is where you don't think about why anything is. Like, you don't think, like, your parents are just your parents. They're not good parents. They're not bad parents. They're just your parents. You never question it. The early mythic is where you become aware of things being good or bad. Or things being separate from yourself. Mythic is traditional religion, where you become aware that there's rules that we should all follow. The baker should bake bread, the plumber should do plumbing, the king should do this, the priest should do that. There's all these rules. You'd better follow the rules because we need the rules for a civilization. The rational is where you realize that the rules are somewhat arbitrary. We could have lots of different rules. What are the best rules that we should have? The pluralistic, you realize, I'm a unique individual. What are the best rules for me? And the integral is where you realize that these are progressive rules, that we are growing over time with all of this stuff. And there's a part of us that exists at every level. At every moment in the day, there's a part of you that is basic power drives. Sex and violence, put it simply. There's a part of you that has rules that you follow. You're a law-abiding citizen. There's the rational part, trying to achieve as much as you can. There's the pluralistic part, where you're a unique snowflake and you're trying to find, I want to find my one true love that gets me. And then there's the integral level, where you're trying to fix all the problems, you're trying to help other people level up. Those are the levels. This is what Psychomath talks a lot about. His shorter videos are about dating. If you don't like those, you should still give his longer videos a chance, because these ones are very interesting. Alright, now let's talk about the quadrants. I'm going to try and be quick with this one. The quadrants are the 4 perspectives that exist on everything. Everything in existence fits into the quadrants. I did not prepare a slide for this, unfortunately, so you're going to have to imagine it. I, internal, external. We, internal. We, external. So, singular, plural, internal, external. There's a really good video, again, by Psychomath, where he breaks down a date that went right. He spends like 40 minutes breaking down a date that a girl complained about on TikTok. Because she was fat, but her photos hid that fact. And the guy met her on the date and then immediately walked away, and like he canceled the date and said, honestly, it's because you're fat. And he spent like 20 or 40 minutes explaining what the hell happened here using the 4 quadrants and assigning blame to people. So the 4 quadrants are, I'm trying to do it for you guys. There's the individual internal. There's my internal self, my feelings, my knowledge, my skills, etc. This is all the interior of my head stuff. Over here, you have my body, my actions in the world. What did I say? What did I do? What where do I spend my money? Do I invest it? Do I buy Star Wars toys with it? Right? That's individual physical. Or sorry, individual physical. Then we have the plural mental is culture. What does our culture say about certain things? What does it believe about things? So I've got my internal beliefs, but then there's the cultural beliefs. So maybe there's something I like, but it's culturally taboo. And so and then there's cultural institutions. So there's something I like, but it's culturally taboo. So if I talk about it, you gotta go to jail, mate. I love Big Brother. Psychomath uses these categories. He presents them very prosaically. He's trying to explain to you how you can use these for your benefit. He also points out, and Ken Wilber points out, one of the biggest problems we have in society is single quadrant analysis. When everything exists on all four quadrants. So when somebody says, skill issue, brah, it's a skill issue, brah. Well, where do your skills exist? Your skills are the individual. Here's your knowledge. You're poor because you got a useless degree. Okay, but what if I got a useless degree, but nobody is hiring me? Well, it could be institutional oppression. Right? This is what the institutional oppression. The institutions are biased. The system is biased against my group. Or cultural. Maybe I've got really good skills, and I've got a really good resume, and there's no institutional bias against me, but I don't have any connections, and I don't know where to apply for the job. People are prone to picking one of the four quadrants and putting that as the cause of all problems, when every problem is going to exist on all four quadrants. That's the aspect that Psychomath likes to talk about. He likes to talk about the practical application of things because we're in an atheistic society. And he's trying to communicate to the atheists. I'm not. I'm trying to communicate to the schizoids. Okay, so let's get to the weird part. I'm going to be quick with this. I'm planning to write a really long essay on this, which means I'm not fully prepared to talk about it. Because we're going to get weird. We're going to be talking about semiotics and ontological proof of God. And we're going to do it really quick and dirty. So, and I'm totally stealing this from Ken Wilber. This is in the book. So let me. This is okay. That's the upper left for you guys. I'm gonna flip everything in my brain. Semiotics is the study of signs and symbols and language. Okay? And everything has... So when you say the word dog, there's the signified and the signifier. The signified is the conception of dog, which is internal. The I. The internal singular is the signified. Dog, cat, railway, steamboat. Square root of -1. The signified is the internal, what it means. And when I say dog, it activates the signified inside of you. Right? I say dog, you've got the image of dog, which is very, very close to mine. Almost identical. In fact, well, we'll get to that. Then you've got the signifier. The signifier in semiotics is the individual outside world, which is dogs in the world, or railways, or the sky, or whatever what the signified is the mental concept. Signifier is the external concept. Then you've got the semantics. The semantics are the culture surrounding dog. Propaganda. Well, we don't call it propaganda anymore. We call it, what do they call it? Customer relations. Because the semantics, the culture surrounding the signified. And then, instead of institutions, lower left, we've got syntax, the rules of grammar. Now, do you notice what didn't actually appear in any of these 4 boxes was dogs? Let me catch some. I gotta catch up with these comments. Hey, guys, check out Pinkerton's Ghost. He does a radio novella about a private eye that fights vampires. It's really cool. Oh yeah, and that's my electric heater. It's frickin' cold right now. Alright, so to reiterate, when it comes to language, when it comes to semiotics, we've got the word dog. It's got an internal state for us. It's got an external, oh look, there's a dog. I call that thing a dog. It's got a emotional connotation. Man's best friend. You dirty dog. And that's got a syntax as to how it has to be used in language. Right? You did a bad grammar, my man. But in these 4 states, there is no dog. So, where is dog? Well, dog has its own 4 states. So the dog, it's got its I internal. The dog has its lived experience. The dog has its external actions, usually trying to dig a hole under the fence. The dog exists in a cultural context with other dogs, or as part of a human family. And it exists in an institutional other reality, which is the laws of evolution, the laws of the environment. And so you've got these 4 quadrants on the one side of semiotics, talking about dogs. Us humans talking about dogs. And they've got dogs over here with their own 4 quadrants of existence. Where do these 2 sets of 4 quadrants connect? In language, we have epistemology. Right? The naming of things. How do we label things? How do we sort all the things? Identify all the things. And then you've got ontology, the existence of the things in and of themselves, the things that exist. Cogito ergo sum, I think, therefore I am. What are we to do with this duality of, on the one hand, we have language talking about things, and then we have things existing. Where the hell do they connect? Because they actually don't connect together. And this is where I'm going to pull out the Kybalion, which is allegedly from Hermes Trismegistus. I don't know that it is, but Hermes Trismegistus, the thrice great, the father of alchemy, one of the demigods that lived about 3,000 years ago. Most of our modern understanding of reality derived from this. During the Enlightenment, when they really started embracing the teachings of Hermes. Like the god Hermes is named after the demigod. It's named after the man, because he was that smart. So this is from the Kybalion, which is written in 1908. It might be a little bit apocryphal. Okay? I'll have to get back to you on this, but the 7 Hermetic principles. The principle of mentalism. All is mind, the universe is mental. To quote Ken Wilber, reality is psychomaterial. Everything is both matter and mind. 2, the principle of correspondence, as above, so below. Principle of vibration. Nothing rests, everything moves, everything vibrates. Principle of polarity. Everything is polarity. The epistemology of naming things and the ontology of things existing are the north and south poles of a magnet. So we've got the what's the signs and symbols. We've got the language. We've got the 4 quadrants of language of the word dog. And then we have the 4 quadrants of dog existing. These are the 2 poles, epistemology and ontology, connected by hyperspace. And by the way, if this hyperspace didn't exist, if there was not a divine conduit, like a magnet with its magnetic fields, connecting epistemology and ontology, if this universe was purely material, you might still have things like evolution, right? You might have really complex maximizers seeking to reproduce, but communication would be completely impossible. If material evolution were all that was true, your subjective internal experience would have 0 correlation to reality. Your internal subjective experience would be optimized to maximize the number of genes you express. Language would be completely impossible. And yet language is omnipresent. We have the same emotions as the other animals. Sometimes we don't understand the other animals, but more often than not, we do. And this is, now this principle, the principle of polarity, the Kybalion might be quoting this in a modern framework. Might not be quite as ancient as they're pretending it is, but it does touch upon things that are truly ancient. Okay, so that's all I'm going to be saying about the quadrants. I want to talk about the quadrants so that you understand. The quadrants are a very useful metric for examining problems in your life. Like if you can't meet a girl, to steal from Psychomath, is it because skill issue, brah? You're just not very charismatic. Could it be that you have really bad pickup lines? Could it be that you're in a culture that is hostile to dating? Like, for example, if you went to India, and let's pretend everybody in India has an arranged marriage, and you try and date girls, well, you're not going to find any dates because everybody's doing an arranged marriage. That's a cultural issue. Or is it a structural issue that there's certain legal requirements to date? Or you live in a place where there aren't any bars, and so you can't meet any girls at the bar because there aren't any bars. This is structural. There's that aspect of the four quadrants. But the four quadrants are so much more than merely a way to analyze problems in your life. They're actually foundational to reality itself. And that said, I think we're finally ready to get to the crazy part, but first I need to go to the washroom. Give me 30 seconds, folks. Maybe 45. Alrighty. Apologize for the delay. Due to the nature of fluid dynamics, all mammals on the planet can empty their bladder in 7 seconds. Except for Italians. We take 9. Oh, geez, this is Master Mayhem Project. We are going to have to talk about that. I don't want to get... There's so many rabbit trails I could get lost on. We are going to have to talk about that. Ah, Necrodancer, $20, thank you. Set versus Raw, dogs versus chicken wings, dogs, racists have battled for ages. Light and dark, both hot gods and angel wings are part of the complete breakfast. Just be single, $9.99. Yes, Canadian Italian. Thank you, brother. Thank you for the donation. So, the stages of development are how complexly you think about your relationships. I'm watching myself walk up the stairs. Did I look sexy? How complexly do you think about morality? you will inevitably grow through the stages depending upon your society. Right? If you're a caveman, you're not really going to grow that much because there's no need to grow. But if you're in any sort of a civilization, you will gradually ascend to the highest stage of complex moral reasoning that you're capable of. If, quite frankly, you're low IQ, you might only get to level 4, which is follow the rules. There's a lot of working class jobs that are built around the idea of guys that can't really think more complexly than just follow the rules. So you give them a schedule, you give them a route, and they do it reliably every day. And that's as high as they can ascend due to IQ limitations, essentially. But you will be pushed. Society pushes you to get to the highest stage you can. Wilber calls this growing up. Right? Like, when you're a teenager, we all want to be the guy in charge. But you gotta grow up. You gotta learn to play with other people. Gotta play nice. That's the stages. Stages are learning to play nice. The stages are, even if the cop giving you a speeding ticket is being a real douchebag about it, somebody at a high stage is going to still be polite because there's no profit in being rude to a cop. It doesn't help you being rude to a cop. Somebody at a low stage, Achilles is going to mouth off the cop. Achilles was a great warrior, but he was not very high level. Again, the Iliad is all about Achilles going from level 3 to level 4. But then you get waking up. And this is where shit's going to get weird. Okay? Just an hour and 20 minutes into the live stream. Finally, we get to the weird part. And listen, when it comes to the stages, this isn't a bragging thing. I was at level 7 a long time ago. A very long time ago. The waking up is spirituality. Is becoming aware of what consciousness is. Of what God is. And listen, the reason I want to talk about the stages is because they're a little bit easier for us to... I think you guys all see the stages. You all see how they make sense. Like, now that I've explained the stages to you, you might have some questions, but you're not tempted to debate whether or not they actually exist. Right? Especially if you have kids. If you have kids, then you've seen it firsthand what these stages are all about. Davy Jones, you just got here for the good part. These states of consciousness that we're going to get into, which is the waking up. This is the spiritual ascension. This is enlightenment. This stuff is just as thoroughly mapped as the stages of growing up. This is not like your opinion, man. And it does map to St. Teresa's Little Way, which I do not know enough about right now to bring into the conversation, I'm afraid. But this is universal. This is all cultures. This is all humans. The difference between stages and states is that you're forced to grow up through stages. If you don't grow up, we put you in prison. But states, to become aware of what awareness is, of what perception is not required. So this is the part where we get weird and we start talking about actual psychic powers. So, Wilber boils it down to 5 states. I'm going to briefly mention a 6th, just because I know I got some esoteric motherfuckers in this stream. The 5 states are the gross physical, the subtle, the causal, the witnessing, and the non-dual. The non-dual right there. That's why I was talking about the 4 quadrants. And epistemology and ontology. I need to set that up so we can talk about the non-dual states. So the gross physical is the default reality we all wind up in. Right? It's where your brain is chattering. You've got a lot of emotions. Got a lot of feelings about stuff. That's the gross physical. The gross physical is default reality. The subtle realm is when you think of spiritual experiences. When you think of, like, if you think of a drug trip in a TV show or a cartoon show, right? Where they're saying all these crazy stuff. If you think about somebody talking with the gods. Padre Pio, 55. Dude, Necrodancer, you're too good to me. Thank you. Yeah, I'm not going to be touching too much on the magical powers with this one, but Padre Pio could bilocate. We're going to be touching on religion later in this video. I completely believe that Christ came back from the dead. Like, I am more certain that he died and came back than I am about the Earth being a globe. I also think that any of us could do the exact same thing if we got our act together. I don't think most of us would, but I think we easily could. Yeah, like what we're talking about now is, this is the crazy magic part. So, level 1 is gross reality. Level 2 is the subtle. The astral realm. This is where the gods exist. At the very upper limit is where the Watchers exist. The Titans. The Frost Giants. The foundational building blocks of reality. Time. Space. Entropy. There's this witnessing aspect. At the very top of the astral. Like, I've been there. Been a little bit. I think I've gotten to level 3. There's these things that watch at the very top of it. They're just watching, and they exist at the point where parallel lines meet. They're the infinity point. Level 2 is the mental realm to the infinity point. You'll meet gods here. You'll be able to see yourself. This is where angelic beings exist, beings of light. Level 2 is where you realize I am not my body. I am observing my body. I am not my emotions. I am observing myself. I'm observing emotions going through me. I'm observing Achilles having Ares descend upon him. I am not my thoughts. I observe the thoughts moving through my head, and I can look at where the thoughts came from. I am remembering, perhaps, a time, it's usually negative, isn't it? A time I made a fool of myself. Well, why am I thinking that? I'm thinking that because I made a fool of myself one time when I was out with my friends at a Dairy Queen. And why was I thinking about that? Well, we just drove past a Dairy Queen, and driving past that Dairy Queen made me recall that memory, making me recall the time I made a fool of myself, which is causing an emotion of feeling embarrassed, but I'm the thing watching myself have this experience. I'm so lucid right now, I'm almost finished. Yeah, exactly, right, bro? Exactly. The gross physical level 1 is the ego. The subtle is the soul. And what I was just describing is the... Oh, goodness. And this is where it starts really getting weird. Okay? Starts really getting weird. All the crazy spiritual stuff that you see, the drug trips and the mystical insight, that's all layer 2. Okay, and we got 3 more layers to go. So we're just talking about, this is high astral level, where you're observing yourself having an emotion because you had a thought, and that thought was triggered by something you saw in the physical realm. That's still level 2, but it's getting pretty close to level 3. By the way, I was going to mention level 1.5, physical, etheric, astral. Etheric is the realm of vibration. It's music, it's vibe, it's right in between. Like the astral is idea space, right? Like the mass formation of a mob is something happening on the astral. Whereas burning down the Parliament building happens on the physical. And the etheric is the vibe realm. Music is there. Music is partly physical, partly astral. If you walk into the room and you feel the vibe of the place, that's the etheric, which is the border between physical and astral. There's parts of etheric we can measure, there's parts that we can't measure, because they're purely mental constructs. When you realize, remember we said earlier that the subject becomes the object of the new subject? So the ego is the object of the soul. The soul is watching the ego, is looking at the ego that feels things, that has thoughts, that has opinions. So when does the soul become the object? The soul becomes the object at the level of spirit or higher self. And the whole, all of reality becomes an object at that point. All of the gods, all of the titans are all object. Level 3 is a realm of darkness full of potentiality. It's a realm of bliss. It's the darkness that existed before time, before the universe, a pure potentiality that doesn't happen. Gods and angels are the same thing, Goy Destroyer. Gods, angels, emotions, egregores, all of those exist on level 2. All of those mental constructs, all of those beings exist on level 2. Is Zeus a being of light? Yes, Zeus is a being of light. He's certainly not in the gross material world, despite what the Marvel movies would have you believe. He is part of the subtle realm, the realm of ideas, of enlightened energy, of inspiration, of purpose, of meaning. But as you observe all these meanings, you eventually notice the infinite abyss that exists, like the fractal abyss that exists in eyes themselves. And you enter that dark night of the soul. You enter that abyss. Layer 3 is the infinite, warm, comforting darkness. This darkness that's just full of lights. I think Anuin is the Celtic term for it. This realm of potentiality and bliss, where anything is possible and everything is just coming in waves. The eternal present. And then layer 3 turns to layer 4 when you reach the end of infinity. When you stop being an observer observing the infinite potentiality, when you finally reach the base of the, like, you hit the infinity point of the black hole, the terminal point, and you become observation itself. And then finally, state 5 is when observer and observed completely dissolve. The epistemology and the ontology, the north and south poles of the magnet, the language about dogs, and the physical existence of dogs, you realize that they are the same thing. All is mind and all is matter. In the Matrix, when Neo, he's fighting Agent Smith, and then finally he gets it. And in perfect calmness, without even thinking about it. He's blocking every blow because he is Agent Smith. He's Neo, he's Agent Smith, he's the punch, he's blocking the punch, he is everything. Ken Wilber describes it as the sky turns into a blue pancake that falls upon your head. I am what I observe. What I observe is me. I am taking actions, I am the results of those actions. Complete non-duality. In Futurama, when Fry bought 100 cups of coffee and he hits that moment of perfect Zen, non-dual awareness and saves everybody from the fire without thinking about it because he is all. I saw a fantastic meme, which was about enlightenment, right? And it's got this guy doing chores. He's mowing the lawn, he's raking the leaves, and he's thinking about being enlightened. And then when he's enlightened, he's mowing the lawn and raking the leaves. But then in the second panel, it's after enlightenment, and he's just mowing the lawn and raking the leaves. Non-duality has been achieved. I promised you the tarot. Alright, let's bring up the tarot. So, these are the major arcana of the tarot deck. There are 22 cards. It starts with the Fool, which is labeled 0. And it ends with the Fool. Now, there's a really fancy word I want to use here. Septenary. Yes, the major arcana of the tarot break down into 3 septenaries. So, let's look at the first one. The first is the gross physical realm. This is the purgative way. Part of your job, the first stage in being a mystic in religion is getting a grip on yourself and is taking all of these drives, all of these urges, all these emotions that are like this multitude of beings within you and strapping them all together into a coherent whole. So the first septenary, the top row, is all about the gross physical realm. So the magician, who has mastered all 4 elements, the masculine principle of mastery, mastering the physical world. Then you've got the high priestess, the intuitive half. This is managing the emotions, the polarities, the holistic. You've got the left brain, then you've got the right brain. This is followed by the Empress. The Empress is Mother Nature. It's the social context within which we all exist. Mother Nature can be a bitch. She's followed by the Emperor. This is the patriarchy. So if she is the we culture from the 4 quadrants, actually literally the first 4 cards of the tarot are the I individual and the I, no, sorry, it's actually I environment, mastering the environment. And then the I, individual, mastering the emotions. And the next card is the we, culture, followed by the we, institutions. Literally, the first 4 cards of the tarot, I did not plan this. The first 4 cards of the tarot perfectly mimic what Wilber is talking about. Now, wait a minute. Wilber also talks about the 4 types of love. There's the self-love of differentiation, the lower love of integration, the upper love of participation, and the horizontal love of combination. Guess what? The last 3, they fit this as well. So, first 2 are the integrative love, being an individual. The second 2 are integrating the lower. Then you get the Hierophant, integrating the higher, right? Like following the religious law. And then the Lovers is the horizontal. Finishing with the Chariot. Now the Chariot is power. You notice that the white Sphinx and the black Sphinx, they're pointed in different directions, but they're harnessed. The 7th major arcana is when he's got a grip on himself. When you're finally grown up, you control your emotions, you've got a grip on yourself. Stage 2, sorry, what did I call those things? Septenary. The 2nd septenary of the tarot card is when you leave the gross physical and you enter the astral, the subtle realm. So we start off with Strength. Strength is a really interesting card because what is it? It's a woman restraining a lion. It's not Hercules restraining a lion. It's a gentle woman. It's gentleness restraining strength. Followed by the Lonely Hermit. The one that's lost in the wilderness with no support. Next you have the Wheel, which is just time grinding forward. The process. Everything is process. Constant change. Then you get Justice. Which, you know, we were talking about Plato's Republic earlier. Like, what is justice? What is this? Is justice... It's just that we gotta split the bill on the pizza? Or is there some higher principle of justice? Do the gods expect something from us? Do they demand something from us? Is there this higher self that we need to be pursuing? Then you get the Hanged Man. The joyous saint being crucified. You get Christ on the cross. You get Odin on the world tree. You get initiation. Next you get Death. The card of change. The card of preceded by sacrifice is the cost. There is a cost to being initiated. And then Temperance, the Angel of Temperance. The first line was about mastering the physical world. The second line is the astral. When you master the astral world, you have temperance at the end of it. You just have that. Temperance is not a challenge to you, it's what you are. And the final septenary, what a great word, septenary, is the final 3 stages of waking up. The Devil and the Tower. The Devil is usury. It's addiction to the senses. It's pleasure. Voluntary enslavement. The interesting thing about the Devil card is that it's not an evil card. It's actually kind of a beyond good and evil card. Like the imp and the impess with the chains around their neck. The chains are loose enough they could take them off. They are voluntarily chained. They're pretending to be chained. It's a bodybuilder enjoying an ice cream cone. A bodybuilder enjoying ice cream is not enslaved. He's just pretending to be. Making passionate love to your lawfully wedded wife is not enslavement to desire. Quite the opposite. Depending upon the context, the Devil is one of the least evil cards. Like, every other card is part of the process, but if you get the Devil in some context, it's like, you know exactly what you're doing. Followed by the Tower. And notice, like, these are the only 2 black cards. Which also goes the black of the causal, the infinite void of the causal. The infinite potentiality. The Tower, the surface reading is all plans coming to ruination. But notice 2 things. First of all, who are the 2 figures falling out of the Tower? The red and the blue? That's the Magician and the High Priestess. That's the physical world mastery and emotional world mastery. Getting kicked out of the Garden of Eden. Notice something else. Do you see all those little yellow dots around them? Those yellow dots are the Yod from Yahweh. That's not divine punishment. That's divine opportunity. Do you think God wanted us to spend all eternity being innocent waifs in the Garden of Eden, walking around nude? No, that's boring. Getting kicked out of the Garden of Eden is the greatest thing that ever happened. So the first 2 cards of that 3rd row, that's level 3. Infinite possibility. It's the most fun you'll ever have, man. Being in a tower, being a slave to Satan, best thing ever. Most fun. Getting kicked out of it, boom. You get to level 4 of the Eternal Witness. And we've got 3 really weird cards here. We've got the Star, which is dreams and inspiration. You've got the Moon, which is psychic ability. You've got the wolf and the dog, and even a creepy crawly from the depths, from the subconscious, all coming up to worship the moon, to understand this higher calling. And then you get the sun. You've got Christ riding upon a horseback. And then you've got the fifth layer, the complete waking up. Got judgment. So, two monks were traveling together. And they encountered a river where there was a small woman she was too small to make it across the river. The first monk, holding true to his vows to never touch a woman, ignored her and walked across the river. The second monk put her on his shoulders, walked across the river, and put her down. Sometime later, the two monks were still walking. And the first monk said, "Brother, why did you touch that woman?" And the second monk said, "My brother, I put her down miles ago. Why are you still carrying her with you?" In the eternal present, do you still carry the sins of the past? Do you accept divine grace? Do you accept forgiveness, or do you carry the past? Judgment. What an interesting name for a card about liberation. Judgment and liberation, two sides of the same coin. A monk went to the great master and said, "Master, why did the Buddha come east to China?" And the master said, "Do you see that laurel bush over there?" And the student said, "Master, don't answer spiritual questions with physical examples." And the master said, "I didn't." And then the final card, the world, the integration, enlightenment, followed by the enlightened fool. 0 starts and 0 begins. This is also the pattern of the original Star Wars trilogy. Squint your eyes and look. Luke Skywalker begins as the fool, and he ends as the divine fool surrounded by friends. Those movies were initiatory. All right, now let's catch up with some of these comments. Oh boy, I was going on for a little bit there, wasn't I? There we go. All of the gods. Aren't you Catholic? Right, which is something I need to tie this together with. God, and okay, so they aren't human says gods, meaning angels and demons, I'm guessing. Yes, That's the interesting thing about the astral, is that it's all about where you're looking. You can look up or you can look down in the astral, and you'll find what you find. You know, what's in there. Whatever you bring with you is what's in there. It's a grand mirror, man. I read, no, it was an audiobook, so I heard Manly P. Hall makes the argument that Satan was man's invention, and I dare say he's correct about that. This is part of shadow work. When you're graduating from 3, which is power seeking, to 4, which is rule following, what you're supposed to do is integrate all the power. Find the correct place for all the power. But very, very few of us do that. It happens at a very young age, usually. Like 3 to 4 is right about when you're hitting puberty. So, number 1, you're getting all of these new instincts coming online. At the same time, you have these new rules coming online. Creates a lot of either you push something away and you bury it, or you obsess over it. I would say in particular the kids these days, with all the drugs and sexual celebration, have become obsessed over a lot of sexual instincts, as opposed to integrating them and putting them in their proper place. And so a lot of what we call demons are actually just our alienated instincts. Sex and violence are part of who we are. You're not getting rid of them. They're the same thing. So the argument that Satan was man's invention, not God's, that tracks with me. I'm really liking this Manly P. Hall guy. He seems to know what he's talking about. The abyss is infinite potential where all potential arises. Yes, the abyss is beautiful. The abyss is pure bliss. The big danger of stage 3 is that you might just want to stay there. We're going to get to that shortly. You shouldn't stay. You want to get to 5. Because when you get to 5, you're still at 3. Okay? And by the way, I'm not saying... I've glimpsed 5. I think. I'm not quite sure. When you can find bliss in doing your job every day, while still being on the physical. Oh, I should turn up. Well, and I guess that's part of the reason I wanted to bring up the tarot cards and Star Wars. Right? Like, Star Wars Episode 1. You start off with Luke Skywalker is a kind of a dink. But by the end, he blows up the Death Star, which is completely the chariot at the end of that. Star Wars Episode 2, he's forced into this... Or, sorry, Episode 5. He's forced in this deep introspective journey where he screws everything up. Right? He meets... He's got strength that he needs to control. He meets the Hermit on Dagobah. He's got the Wheel of Time. He's got the Justice. He gets initiated. He meets death. And then finally, at the end, he finds temperance. Like, this broken-hearted, like, I'm wise, but it hurts. He's got temperance. And then the third one literally starts off with him being the devil. He walks into Jabba's palace as the devil. He smashes the tower. They have all this playful, weird stuff, and then he... Yeah. It's no accident. George Lucas was really tapping into something with these movies. And the reason everybody likes the second movie more than the third, I think it's largely because the third is a little bit too esoteric. The second movie is just the right amount of esoteric that you kind of like, oh, it's not just about lightsabers, man. It's about him figuring out his destiny, man. Whereas the third one is the Bodhisattva mowing his lawn. Let's hear from my boy, the Emperor. You know, I'm brief comment. A lot of people have Emperor issues. The Emperor's always going to be there. Like, the Emperor is the cops are a dick. Like, red light cameras. Like, the cops are always going to be a dick. For as long as humans exist on this planet, cops are going to be dicks. The Empress is women are all bitches, man. You are always going to be subject to Mother Nature. Like it or not, like all humans that ever exist will be subject to Mother Nature. All humans that ever exist are gonna have to deal with traffic cameras. That's the Empress, that's the Emperor. Like, this is just the basic structure of reality. Card number 1, get good. Card number 2, sort out your emotions. Card number 3, figure out how to get along with others. Card number 4, figure out how to not get caught. And after you figure those 4 things out, once you master the 4 quadrants, then you get to the Hierophant. What is the higher purpose in life? You get to the higher purpose, you find a lover, and then finally you master your chariot. Let's see, Master Mayhem, man, I'm so looking forward. Master Mayhem and I are going to be doing a podcast in the next few days or something. We haven't planned it out specifically, but I'm really, really looking forward to it. Alright. Necro Dancer says, Imperial Chinese Jade, magic crystal bullshit. The Chinese figured it out. Listen to eBay auctions, not blue-haired women. Word I can't say is Trash says, I like to watch the cows outside the window at work. They, just like me, they are. They totally are, man. We're all just these funnels of perception, all... Awareness... It's a singular without any plural. Something like that. Joe Dagger. Yeah, $10, man. Thank you. Good to see you on YouTube. I didn't expect your channel to get reinstated. Start following after I found Roosh 9 years ago. Do you know what he's up to? I think he is genuinely... He is probably in the absolute blissful realm right now. I know that we're getting serious into Eastern Orthodox Christianity from a very genuine place. And I haven't heard anything else from him. I'd really like to shake his hand someday, you know? He's a good man. Let's see. Goy Destroyer says, making love and enjoying ice cream. Why waste your time with this nonsense instead of achieving enlightenment? Because that's what you do after you achieve enlightenment. When Luke Skywalker transcends the Emperor, redeems his father, and sees the Force ghosts, he goes and hangs out with his friends. That's what you do with enlightenment. They aren't human, says eternal bliss is its own type of hell. Yeah, that's when there's a lot of pitfalls on this journey, and one of them is falling into eternal bliss. I mean, if eternal bliss were the purpose, then the Garden of Eden. Enlightened physical deniers when I eat the entire pizza by myself. Necrodancer says, please pray for Six Hexenhammer. He is dying. He may be a pirate vampire wizard, but Jesus bless his heart. I haven't kept up with him. You know, for a pirate vampire wizard, he never did any evil to me. I will pray for him. I will pray for his health and his well-being. And any folks out there, you know, toss your prayers into it too. He's never done any evil to me. He's never done any evil to anybody as far as I can tell. In fact, I say he's done a fair bit of good, despite being an edgy boy. Master Mayhem says, we kind of stumbled ourselves into the same idea from both directions. Yes, absolutely. Everything I'm talking about in this stream is from all directions. It's literally from all directions. This is not like my opinion, man. This is when you talk to mystics throughout the world, this is what you find. This is the map. That there are... Do angels... Are angels made of multiple concentric circles of eyeballs? Or is it a dude with 10,000 arms? Okay, the Hindus and the Christians disagree on that point. But what they all agree with is at what elevation of the mountain you meet these angels at. There are universal components that are so much more significant than the individual differences. Okay, let's get to the last part of this live stream, which is, why does any of this matter? The first part I already touched on, which was, as you go up in stages, states are the waking up, stages are the growing up. The more grown up you act, the more responsible, the better your life is. If you pay your bills on time, you'll get a good credit rating, and then you can get a new car for cheap. Okay? So like, grow up, dickhead. But then we get to the waking up, which was so challenging to describe because hitting state number 2 is incredibly rare. And that's what most of us think about mystical experience. But there's 3 more states above that. And this is what's behind the unique dissociation between the West and the East, as well as some of the most enlightened in the West are the least religious. In the East, they pursued waking up at the expense of growing up. Most of the East is still at stage 4. The mythic, the traditionally religious, the racist, the patriarchal. And yet they're at the highest levels of waking up. So you get this really weird situation. I need to toss this back on screen. So right here, we talked about the growing up. The growing up is the y-axis. The magic, like the baby that thinks mummy could turn the Brussels sprouts into chocolate if she wanted to because she's magic, to the integral, which is the really socially advanced state, versus the socially advanced stage. On the x-axis, we have the states of consciousness. The gross, the subtle illumination, that's the gods and the spirits and the being true to yourself and the inspiration. You get the causal dark night and then the non-dual unification. Stages 4 and 5 are being put into stage 4. Right there. Sorry, states 4 and 5 are being compressed into state 4. So if we took the East in general, they are at mythic, their highest achievers are at mythic non-dual. Whereas our highest achievers are at subtle integral at best. And as for the church, Christ was a mystic. Christ existed in a culture that was largely mythic. Mythic is, my tribe is bigger than your tribe. Achilles wants to be the guy. And that's the environment that Christ grew up in. And you can spot that every so often in the Bible, that he's a bit of a racist, isn't he? What is it? The Samaritan woman touches his robe and says, "Who did that?" His default assumption is he's just there for the Jews. He's an ethno-nationalist, like everybody else was back then. And so his kind of knee-jerk reaction is stage 4, ethno-nationalism. But after his stage 4 knee-jerk, he immediately ascends. I hope I have a few heathens listening to this. I have a lot of respect for heathens. I don't condemn them. One thing I'd like to emphasize is that the Christ of the Old Testament, which it's not a videotape for crying out loud. Okay, it's a document written 2,000 years ago. Written by people with a bias. But despite that bias, Christ is a very smart character. He's a very high IQ character. The Pharisees constantly try and trap him in logical conundrums, and he finds a sneaky, smart way out every single time. This woman has committed adultery. Oh yeah? Let he who is without sin cast the first stone. Should we pay taxes to Caesar or not? Whose face is on those coins? Caesar. Well, render unto Caesar what belongs to Caesar. I'm here on behalf of the Lord. That's a smart character. That's a high IQ character. And I think we've all seen enough smart characters written by stupid writers these days to recognize a very, very high IQ, well-written character. He smarts his way out of traps. And despite being at a stage 4 mythic, racist, patriarchal civilization in a world that was racist and patriarchal, he's radically not that, even if his kind of default state is that. Like, Christ was a mystic. Christ was a very advanced mystic. And yet, the Western Church was institutionalized. It became a power broker, creating a very interesting opposite scenario in Europe. So, in the East, government had no challenges. Government wanted to rule. And so it got everybody up to the mythic stage. Follow the rules, worship the rules. But they didn't advance past that. However, on the state stage, on the waking up stage, we actually got real, true mysticism. And so you've got a high-level mystic who's also a low-stage ethno-supremacist. We had the opposite thing happen in Europe, where, although Christ was a high-level mystic, we locked our religion into the mythic stage. Christianity and Judaism are at the mythic level. See, if I went to a Buddhist, if I built a time camera, a camera that could see back through time, and I proved to them that, well, actually Buddha didn't spend 30 days meditating under the Bodhi tree, it would not matter to them. That's not, like, who cares? Who even cares if Buddha literally existed? That's not important to Buddhists. While mythically walking on water is crucial to Christianity. And our Christian mystics have tended to be very upsetting to Christianity because they tend to come to the conclusion that all of us are Jesus Christ. The 4 quadrants. Let me take that image off. The 4 quadrants. The individual self is Christ. The plural, the you, is God the Father. And the Holy Spirit is the it's. The external world of manifestation. And Christian mystics all tend to achieve Christ consciousness, which is very disturbing for the powers that be. So while the East developed high state level, we locked our state level in at the mythic level, and then built a bureaucracy on top of it, which demanded high consciousness levels. Which is why religion is dying in the West. It's because we've got a Bronze Age religion for a society that's just about to hit integral levels. And it's so damn difficult to believe in the Christianity that we have, because it's a very, very primitive Christianity, and we're 3 stages above it. You know, go back to the rational level. Okay, like 200 or 300 years ago, like rational really started to take over, and so many of the archaeologists, the geologists, they were studying Christianity in an attempt to prove it true. They believed that we could apply scientific reason to make the Bible true. And in some cases it worked with the abstract stuff like the Big Bang. But not with the other details. And thus the difficulty that we have with establishment religion. So let's see. You know what? I'm going to take another bathroom break. I'll be quick, then let's get to some of the comments. You know what, let me bring up one more reason why this matters. So when we were talking about the stages of development, I stopped at 7. I mentioned that Wilber goes up to like 12, 15, depending on how you want to measure it. And the whole time I'm reading this book, I'm listening to the audiobook, I'm thinking about Yuval Harari. You know that crazy son of a bitch in charge of the United Nations? He's going to reprogram all of us to love Big Brother. That guy. I am trying to suss out what's going on with that guy. And I had a flash of insight that I don't completely comprehend, and I'm not certain it's correct, but I think he might be at, level 3 of 9. I think I might almost have it. I think I might almost know what's going on with him. The guy is extremely high level with a particular dysfunction. Imagine somebody level 4 of morality. Imagine a level 4 Christian that he's a deeply honest person. He's very committed to his community, hard work, like a really, really decent human being. But also imagine he's got latent homosexuality, which he's completely repressed. Because he hasn't hit 5 or 6. He's not pluralistic. He believes in the literal Bronze Age mythology of do this or we kill you. And so he's actually a really, fundamentally, he's a really good person. Okay, so he's a homosexual. Minor flaw, not a big deal. Except because he's so locked in at level 4, this sexual repression comes out in all manner of destructive ways. You know, not even the one you're thinking about. Maybe he's just a really sadistic boss. Because he's so sexually repressed, his frustration comes out as authoritarian sadism. Whereas if he could just grow up a little bit and accept that, okay, I guess I don't really fit in to the mold perfectly. I'm not the ideal Christian. I'm going to take this part that doesn't quite fit in. I'm going to keep it to a dull roar. Right? Evenings and weekends only. Instead of integrating that part of himself, he suppresses it, and it causes a backlash. And so you wind up with a really cruel boss for a totally unrelated reason. I think Yuval Harari is something very similar. He's got such a profound insight into the way the mind works, and it is in such utter denial about the existence of spirit. I think I've almost got him nailed. And a large part of that is that our spiritual understanding in the West is retarded. In the East, their social understanding is retarded. Most of them are at level 4. About half our population is above that. And that's why this stuff matters. Alright, let me check some of these arguments. These comments. What I think is strange is that my Protestant family refused to even try to understand my ways and my beliefs, whereas I myself am more Russian, Serbian, Orthodox. That's Alright, so stage this is we're talking about stage 4. Is it 4? Yeah, 4 of traditional morality. When you've got a misbehaving kid, or a misbehaving adult, which is even worse because they can do some serious damage, you really hammer the rules down on them. No, do this, don't do that, or else we hit you with a stick. Which, if the child is not grown to 4th stage morality by the time they ought to have, that's kind of our remedial method. Do this or we put you in jail, mate. Part of the problem is that we built such good control structures that were meant for the people below that, and we started applying them to the people above that. If you are above stage 4, if you're at 5, you shouldn't just do whatever you feel like. You don't throw out stage 4 morality. Don't tear down Chesterton's fence. Understand why the fence was there. This is the big problem with level 6, is they want to tear down all the fences, and anybody can do whatever they want all the fucking time, and then society falls apart. Somebody at level 6 doesn't want to burn down anybody else's house. Everybody at level 3 does. Which is why we need level 7 integral. But yeah, there's a big problem of level 4 having such a strong center of gravity that drags people back from level 5 into level 4. Gore Destroyer asks, why ought we grow up? Perhaps stagnation is fine. Who's to say that the astral and mystical is a... Sorry. So that was a miscommunication. The astral, mystical, like all of that, that's waking up. It's waking up to the nature of consciousness itself. And the reason you should do it is because of the incredible bliss that you feel. So I spent the past 3 weeks, just over 3 weeks actually, working night shift for a boss that was kind of a dick. But actually the reason he was kind of a dick is because I had, well, still have, unresolved trauma from my childhood. Boo hoo hoo hoo. It was an immense opportunity for growth. Right? Like, he actually wasn't a dick. He was just like, do the job right. And that reminded me of the time that my dad was really mean to me, and it fucked me up in the head until I said, you know what, this is an opportunity for growth. How about you don't be a faggot? How about you don't make excuses, and how about you just do the fucking thing? And then the guy that was a real dick, turned out he liked me. And holy shit, I just went through some major personal growth. And they're paying me money for this. And then a few more weeks, and so I'm on these night shifts. I'm in like delta wave brain patterns the whole time. Barely sleeping. Listening to audiobooks. Internalizing, rewriting my own code. Learning to perceive time as an eternal present. So I've had a transformative 3 weeks while getting paid pretty fucking damn well. And I'm in a really good mood. Like, honestly, like, the worst part of right now is that I'm really, really tired. Because I just came off night shift. And I kind of want to be sleeping. But I wanted to do a podcast for you guys, and I've got work to do tomorrow. Like, that's the worst part. Like, I'm just feeling fantastic right now. Not only was I getting paid quite well for 3 weeks, I did immense personal, intellectual, and spiritual growth during those 3 weeks. That's why it's worth it. Is because I could have had a shitty, awful 3 weeks. I'm out in the cold, my feet hurt, my boss is a dick, this job is unstimulating. But instead I feel like I went through like 5 years of transformation into closer to like the true self that I want to be. That's why. That's why this stuff matters. Is because you will like yourself more on the other side. If you show up for work every day and you don't get fired, even if your job sucks, you will get a paycheck. And then you can get a better job. Applied transformation of reality, my brothers. I mean, you want to be an alchemist. Learn to do chemistry. Transform yourself, transform reality. And by the way, Go Destroy, that wasn't meant to be insulting. That was a great question. Thank you for that question. Not trying to condescend to you at all. Just live with thoughts and a wine. I mean... Gorgeous George says, I'd argue that render to Caesar what is Caesar's is high wisdom, not high IQ. I was having I've been getting a lot out of the AIs. And so I was trying to argue with the AI. See, I ran into a video arguing that Christ is high IQ, because those are high IQ arguments. Those are very clever ways of dodging the landmine and winning the argument. And so then I started arguing with the AI that actually Christ was at the mythic level of spirituality, and it made some pretty convincing arguments that no, he wasn't. The Gospels, and let's put it this way. If you look at War of the Worlds, War of the Worlds is a story where Martians invade Earth, but then, and we can't fight them, their lasers are so much better than our guns, but then, oh look, disease killed all of them. This was completely inspired by the discovery of viruses. It was completely inspired by the understanding of how disease worked at the beginning of the 20th century. And it was also completely inspired with guilty reflections upon European colonialism. It's such a clear product. To such a point that if you make the movie nowadays, it's kind of silly. Sort of like how in the original Spider-Man narrative, it was gamma radiation that turned the spider into a magic spider that bit him and turned him into Spider-Man. Whereas in the movie I saw 20 years ago, instead of gamma radiation, it was genetic science. Anybody could write the Gospels nowadays. It's not impressive these days. Writing the Gospels 2,000 years ago was genuinely impressive. This is why we call it the Axial Age. The Iliad points out that forgiveness is necessary if we want to have civilization. That's what Christ points out. Buddha's a little bit different, but like all of these religions that appeared during the Axial Age, yes, the statements are banal in today's world. I'm speaking to the heathens here. Because you guys know I don't hate you. I've been criticizing the church this whole stream, for crying out loud. These were profound statements, and the heathens were making the same statements. There was this mass collective ascension happening. And it got institutionalized into ways that are very obnoxious. Granted. Don't throw out the baby with the bathwater. Christ was very spiritually and psychologically aware. Bare minimum, you gotta say that. I also think the Shroud of Turin is pretty solid evidence that he literally came back from the dead. Although I'd also say Christ has a Buddha nature. Something I wanted to touch on. So, one of the things Wilber points out, I may mangle this a little bit, So if you know more about this than I do and I get it wrong, I apologize. But it's kind of a good primer. There have been 3 stages of Buddhism so far. The first is the Hinayana, the original Buddhism, which is a mythic level Buddhism that says the world is suffering ascent. The second is Mahayana, which is where we go from mythic to rational, which says the world is suffering, ascend, and then help others ascend. Be a bodhisattva, be socially responsible. And they've got Vajrayana, which is the pluralistic. Everybody's got their own path. And Wilber argues that Buddhism is on the eve of its 4th turning, which is the 4th turning, which is not the same as Strauss-Howe generational cycle at all. 4th turning is that we must encourage the Buddha nature in all beings. All beings must ascend and should be allowed to ascend, and we should all help them all ascend. You know, we're hitting a stage of potential social organization, where we turn the whole society into turning people into saints. See, I say turn people into saints. Doesn't that sound brutal? Doesn't it sound like you need to give up sex, you need to give up whiskey, and calling liberals F words? You got to give up all those basic pleasures of life. No, actually, you don't. On the one hand, you will find that so many of these things that strike you as pleasurable, they're like candy bars when you were a kid, right? Like, honestly, I would genuinely prefer like a tasty steak dinner or like chicken veggies to a shitty candy bar as an adult. Like, I genuinely prefer that most of the time. It doesn't mean I don't enjoy eating. It doesn't mean I've renounced the pleasure of tasty food. It's that it's more refined. Like, I still have the pleasure. Like, it's still really, really good when I make chili. It's fantastic. It's so much better than the candy bar was when I was a kid. Like, there might be some nostalgia for the simplicity of that flavor. But I genuinely prefer the steak. So these are genuine advancements that we're undergoing. Now, let me catch up with some more comments here. Oh, wait. There we go. All right, that was Goy Destroyer asking, why should we grow up? Because steak actually does taste better than candy bars. But you should enjoy candy bars. Don't hate yourself for enjoying chocolate. Man, it's not either or. It's both. It's transcend and include. Okay, when you get to the higher, it's not about saying no to the lower level. It's about putting the lower level in a better place. Another metaphor would be kids on Halloween gorging themselves on shitty chocolate until they have a stomachache, versus adults having a nightcap of chocolate, of really good chocolate, and savoring it, and then having sex. Uh, Recovering Libertarian says, I'm really liking this stuff. I don't really get it, but it's really interesting. Brother, that's exactly how I felt reading this book. Part of the reason I wanted to do the live stream was to force myself to understand it well enough to explain it to you guys. And it's been an uphill struggle. So if you're not understanding it, that's okay. You are going to understand it. Like we're making the pathways that will become roads. So Return Freedom says, question, why Catholicism over Orthodoxy for you? Great question. Or fair question. I should say fair question. That is a fair question to ask. And the reason I got baptized is because I had a major imbalance at the mythic level. So, I was pretty darn good at the rational level. At the rational level, you won't commit crimes because it's just irrational to commit crime. Why, like, that's only idiots commit crimes. Right? So I'm pretty good at not being a criminal. But there's aspects of the mythic. Like each one of these stages connects to the ultimate. And when it comes to committing crimes, somebody at the rational level is less likely to commit crime. Like somebody at the mythic might get into a bar fight and go to jail over that because of preserving their honor. While somebody at the rational would say, you know what, this ain't worth my time. I'm not doing that. I don't care what you think about my honor. And so the rational is better. But there's some places where the rational doesn't connect to the divine as well as the mythic. And so I did something very scandalous when I was younger. I slept with a married woman, fell madly in love with her, made an utter fool out of myself. I was more catalyst than causal agent, but I still made a fool out of myself. And realized, you know what, I am not better than morality. Transcend and include. You never become better than it. You're never better than chocolate. You're never better than sex. You're never better than following the damn rules. You just get more complex. And I realized that there was a part of me that needed the discipline of traditional morality, that needed a whole bunch of the mythic. And at one point it did become a toss-up between Orthodox and Catholic. And part of the deciding factor is that Catholic is my tradition. Catholic is my bloodline. Catholic gives me fewer excuses. You don't want to be a cafeteria Christian. Picks and chooses what you like. If you're going to do it right. So it's pretty evident that I am somewhat of a heterodox Catholic at this point. But I'm forced to acknowledge that. Whereas, if I were Orthodox, I could maybe pick and choose between patriarchs. I could get opinionated about translating from Russian. Whereas when it comes to Latin, well, I speak the damn language, so I'd better follow the vernacular. There is value in being part of a tradition, yet you need to know the rules before you can break the rules. I hope that was a useful answer, because it was a great question. I missed it. We're talking about Peter Thiel. I have no idea what that's in response to, but... Return Freedom. I've read some of Father Seraphim Rose's works. I enjoy and respect the works. I don't want to spread calumny about him. I've also heard what you're saying. Well, I guess I might. Seraphim Rose was a homosexual, turned away from it, and went into seclusion as a hermit. Yeah, I've heard some... I don't know what to think. I'm not sure what to think. And I've got zero interest in getting on top of my high horse and condemning people for sins that I'm not tempted to. And I believe that every single one of us is a fragmented shard of God. Like, every one of us is... We are all the same thing, looking at ourselves in a mirror. Thou art God. Or, if I'm minimum, thou art a soul created by God. Thou art my brother. So, if there are lessons to be learned from his sin, then let us learn those lessons. If there was a great evil committed, then perhaps execution is the correct procedure. If somebody wants to express their spiritual struggles to me on a personal, private level, then I'm all ears. But I don't want to condemn. I mean, I'll happily kill a man, but don't ask me to condemn him. Max Matwell says, 35-year-old 35 years of age and enlisted into the army. I have an environmental science degree, no criminal record, ship in 4 weeks. Am I making a mistake? Christ, man, I don't fucking know. Brother, roll with it. Roll with it. You're having a fucking experience, my friend. You are goddamn doing something. You are fucking doing something. Shit, 35 too. God damn. Nah, you're not making a mistake. You're disrupting the pattern. It would be so goddamn easy to just... Brother, go with it. You know when you're on a roller coaster and it's like, it's oh, click, 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 click. Just gonna, yeah, you're on the roller coaster, man. You're on the trip. Roll with it. God bless. I'll pray for you. Guys, pray for Max Matwell. Pray that he have great adventures or a truly heroic death. One or the other. Pray for one or the other. I think he'll enjoy both. Now you're not making a mistake. That is definitely not a mistake. Worst case scenario, it's going to be interesting. Okay, wait. Alright, so Gore Destroyer says, I'm asking why to get a coherent answer other than because good things are good. That's kind of tautological. Like why should you advance spiritually or morally? Why not just be a guy in prison? I would say the reason is because the games they play in prison are stupid games with crappy rewards. Like the top tier prizes in prison are don't get raped and get to rape a femboy. Given that don't get raped is the default state out of prison and max opportunity, have an actual woman squirt for you, it seems like a better game. Whatever stage of reality you're on, you are still playing a game. The question is risks and rewards. What's the worst outcome? What's the best outcome? You could liken it to the stages are how much you're gambling on the game. Like what are the stakes of the game? Well, the stakes are why you're playing the game. That metaphor doesn't totally work. I mean, ultimately, the reason that you should is that on the next layer, whether we're talking about stages or states, the payoffs are higher and the costs are less. And by the way, please don't mistake the present feminized society as the same thing as high stage. It's not. And we absolutely need to bring back dueling. Oh, and Goy sure says, not even trying to be a dick. Oh, dude, you're not a dick. Great questions. To reiterate, going to the next level makes the game more interesting. It makes the game more strategic. It makes the payoffs richer. It also reduces the number of losers. Base Evolution has a lot of losers. It's not a very nice game, even if winning is awesome. What we're kind of doing, what reality is doing, is we're building a better payoff matrix. Where even if you lose, you still win. That's pretty cool. It's pretty cool to have a payoff matrix where even losers are winners. We are gradually colonizing this reality in the name of Hyperborea and blessing everything, turning everything holy. Nietzsche booty meme. Okay, alright, this is something I ought to read. Without the scholastics, we would not have had the Austrian School of Economics. Although I'm a pagan, I have yet to observe libertarianism similarly develop in non-Western civilizations. It is difficult to share that observation with non-Christians without coming across as thundered for Jesus. Yeah, which is what I'm trying to do with this stream. All the comments just disappeared on me. You know, if we're climbing a mountain, at the top of the mountain is God and ourselves. And on one side, we got really good at grappling, and the other side, we got really at something else, right? The idea that the two sides should be enemies is utterly ridiculous. Oh, alright, what happens if I reload the tab? Can I reload the comments? Yeah, I've seen a few arguments between friends of mine that I just don't want to intervene because these aren't productive arguments. They're not real arguments. Not useful. Oh goodness, where did all the comments go? Reloading the tab. Go to my channel. There we go. Okay, we're back. Tab crashed out. Let me catch up to the comments. Yeah, without scholastics. Okay, so the I mean, that's exactly it. All of these esoteric concepts we have of free market capitalism actually do derive from the scholastics, who were obsessively analyzing a mythic level of Jesus Christ. Well, Jesus Christ himself was. We have strong evidence to believe the guy was a serious mystic, if nothing else. And this weird imbalance between waking up and growing up created the whole scholastic discipline. You know, sometimes it's the guy that seriously screwed up and went to prison that can tell you a thing or two about loyalty. These are all things we should be learning from one another, not fighting with one another. Some of us in the West are trying to deal with this spiritual nihilism by going back to the church and discovering the best within it. Others are rejecting the church and throwing themselves into the field of chaos and trying to find the best within it. And we are not enemies. We should not be enemies. Our disagreements should be honorable and respectful. Same goes for Buddhism. These are not our enemies. These are our fellow seekers. I mean, we're in this goddamn material reality where we have to eat every day or else we fucking die. And also, we have weapons that can blow up half the planet. Kind of in a weird place right now. Some genuine empathy and sympathy from our highest level members, that's a good idea. Alright, let's see if... X-Core Destroyer. I'm asking if you can provide epistemic justification, perhaps. Still unsure, knocking ideas around the next layer. The payoffs are higher. Is it wishful thinking? Brother, that's the sort of question that you can only answer by doing it for yourself. I got good news. The answer is yes. Two hours and 10 minutes. That's actually a perfect fucking place to end things. Existence is fucking terrifying. But the good news is the answer is yes. And furthermore, every historical curve looks like this. Every single one. Neuron density in minds, number of species on the planet. You name it, they all look like that. This is destiny, folks. You are destined to become enlightened. Enjoy the ride. Carpe futurum, tenitra aditum. This is Aurini.